Greetings and salutations. I'm Audley Stephenson. I'm the Vice President of the National Basketball League of Canada, Canada's longest standing professional basketball league. We've been doing this 10 years and we're so proud. I'm also proud to be here on the Jesse T Show. We'll be talking about audaciousness, boldness, living your best authentic selves, all right here on the Jesse T Show. Stay tuned.
The mighty, the powerful, the understanding, Audley Stephenson. Thank you for coming back online.
I appreciate that. I would say before I've never been called the mighty and powerful, but now you got mighty, powerful, understanding. That's awesome. I feel my day's starting off great, buddy. Thanks.
Listen, it's a beautiful day to be alive, man. And we were just working through on my some technical difficulties, man. And so we're back at it. So let's jump right back into it. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you show up in the world?
First up, wear a bunch of hats. I'm a podcaster, so I can understand when stuff like technical difficulties happen or Wi-Fi goes out on us or mics drop or whatever. So I've been there before and I understand. Again, I wear a bunch of hats. I'll start off with my podcast. It's the Audacious Living Podcast, and it was founded, really birthed out of just an extension of how I've lived my life. I had gotten to a point during the midst of the height of the COVID pandemic when we really didn't have a whole lot of anything. And like a lot of people, I sort of looked at myself and look inwards really. The one comment, and I had it, and Jesse, what it was, I just had this desire, this need, this want to give. That's really what it came from. And I started thinking about, well, what does that look like? What can that be? And, I've been podcasting for almost 15 years. So this platform or medium wasn't new to me. And I figured, okay, so, where can I take this and what do I want it to look like? I spent a lot of time in the professional basketball space. I've had tons of basketball podcasts, NBA podcasts. I've done, urban hip hop music. I've done a bunch of stuff, but I wanted this to be different. And as I was doing that searching and I was really looking in, the theme, the common theme that kind of was prevalent throughout my life, when I kind of looked back and looked at sort of my journeys and all my ups and downs, accomplishments, I looked at everything. The one common theme, or that red thread, the terminology you'll hear sometimes, was that everything I'd done was on the strength of being audacious. I was prepared to take a step. I was prepared to be bold. I was courageous enough to overcome whatever fear, doubt, or uncertainty was lingering in my head, to take that bold, audacious move. And so that's really what started the journey. I'm really much encouraging people to live their best audacious lives ever. And I want to really clarify, what I mean when I say that, because, being the most audacious person isn't the one that's the loudest when you come in the room or the most, outgoing. It can be so certainly those things, but that's not what we're talking about. Because if you're audacious enough and brave enough to be the person that you're supposed to be, take that step. Write that book, start that podcast. The impact that you can have on other people are massive. And so you're doing it, as much as you're doing it for yourself, you are impacting other people. So that's a big part of my world. I'm also the proud commissioner, I'm formerly the deputy commissioner of NBL Canada, National Basketball League of Canada. I've been promoted to the vice president of basketball operations, which is something I'm extremely proud about because, 10 years ago, we started on a journey as a league to provide a platform for Canadian basketball players to live their dreams right in their home country. And so 10 years later, we're doing this. Really happy about our upcoming 10th season. And I'm just I'm proud to be along for the ride. I'm blessed. Jesse, I'm a blessed guy. I've got no complaints. And I feel fortunate to be able to do the things I love and impact the people I can and share with people like yourself. So again, thank you for being here, man. Dude, let me come in to hang out with me, man.
Dude, I love your energy. I love your audaciousness and you're welcome. And thank you for sharing time with me. And so as far as this audacious lifestyle and this embodiment, you embody it. It's interesting because we kind of grow into what we're meant to do, and your name is Audley, and that's the first three letters of audacious. And like, you could be fun to I have a friend, she calls herself Pamalicious. You can call yourself Audacious, that's your name, right? So how did you step into this? Were you always outgoing, energetic, willing to overcome obstacles, or did this come from a place like what we talk about, the superhero journey, where you started off one way and something pivotal happened, you're like, screw this, I'm just going to live boldly? Like, where did this come from?
I think it's just a combination of a bunch of things, Jesse. I don't think it's just one kind of thing that you're using the superhero analogy. I don't think you just drink a potion or you get hit by a bolt of lightning and all of a sudden you can run fast or jump high or whatever. For me, it's a combination of a whole bunch of things that I looked at and said, okay, because there are instances where I didn't respond where I could have. But I learned from that. And I said, okay, next time when I'm faced a situation, how can I respond differently? What can I do better? What can I do different? So I don't think it's necessarily one particular thing. Having said that, there are some core aspects of being audacious that are part of me that I was naturally gifted with, which I'm really truly appreciative of, because I think that those things are the foundation of building blocks of who I am. Joke, you mentioned, play on the words, Audley and audaciousness. It's purely coincidental. I mean, someone asked me the other day, did you name the podcast after you? And I was about to say, well, no, I didn't, but actually I did, because that's who I am, right? So it worked out that way. And what we call ourselves is, it just again, it's a nice coincidence. Ironically enough, just a couple of days ago, I looked up I don't know if you've ever done this. I've looked up the meaning of my name. I never thought to do that before. And it's old English background. And the name Audley means old friend. Wow. And I just thought that it was so fitting, because that's how I kind of live my life, and that's how I show up to people. And I want to be there to support people and be there to help them and give in any way that I possibly can. So, it's just things have a way of coming together really nicely. And again, I'm just living me, right?
Dude, I love it. And it really, you really do embody it. Like, just your energy and just how you move through life is audacious, but in a very beautiful, elegant way. I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's like you were talking about earlier. Some people are braggadocious, or some people look at me, look how big I can do things. But it just seems like it just naturally flows with you. And so were you always in this space of creating and wanting to build things and being an entrepreneur, or did you find that path as well through your journey?
Yeah, it's a path that I found. I've gone through life, and it's interesting when people talk about, well, what have you done and how to get to this point. I don't think I've done anything spectacular, to be quite honest with you. I think I've just kind of been me, and I don't think I've gone through any sort of groundbreaking or earth-shattering experience that made me change the direction of my life. I think everyday life, things just kind of happen. But I think what makes it's our response to things, Jesse, right? It's how we respond to these situations. Four or five different people will go through the exact same experience, exact same thing, but their response dictates what it looks like on the other side. So I think where I've been able to capitalize and do really well on is that response to situations. Not to say that the response in the moment was always the right one, but even if it wasn't the right one, I still learned from that. I still was able, okay, when this happens again, I know what I'm not going to do, right? Versus what I am going to do. Yep. So it's just an embodiment of just again, a whole bunch of things that have come into my way. Like I said, I started podcasting 2006, 2007. I mean, it's like the medium wasn't even heard of. And to give you an example, me and a buddy of mine, we were huge basketball fans, NBA basketball. At that time, this was long before, Raptors were winning championships. Vince Carter was still in diapers. It was just, basketball was just here. And there was a small pocket of us that were real big fans of the sport. And so my buddy and I decided, hey, let's do an NBA focused podcast. And it's funny now when you look at it, when you go back, because you're thinking, yeah, that was at a time when the Raptors weren't good. No one cared about basketball, and no one even knew what podcasting was. Like, this is a recipe for failure. It's not going to work, right? And we just said, hey, we're going to do it anyways. I've got a little bit of stubbornness in me. I'll admit that's part of who I am. And if you tell me something, you tell me I'm not going to do something, or I can't do something, or there's no way I can do something, you're just firing me up, right? So I was ready to go, and we ran that for 5 years. We probably finished with over 1 million downloads, 300 plus guests that we had, from entertainers and celebrities, just a whole host of people that will roll through and hung out on the podcast with us. And the thing about it, when I reflect back, the one thing that people really appreciated about our podcast was they were just really authentic conversations. We heard time and time again, you guys are just so real. That's awesome. So again, when I stop and look back at my life and go, okay, what kinds of things I did? Well, I started this Audacious podcast when no one was doing podcasts, and it was real. But those things are a part of me, Jesse. That's who I am. So you see that when I'm talking about that red thread, that theme that it's intertwined throughout all you do, those things were always there. And so that sort of started me. And listen, I think the podcasting medium is fantastic. And you know this, I don't know how to convince you at all. It's a phenomenal platform. The medium allows you to connect, to share your message, like the number of people that you can reach out to is just incredible. So it's a medium that I love, and I've always sort of used that as kind of been my springboard and platform to do other things.
So you got in the game pretty much right away. I mean, because if you think about it, some like they call the godfathers of podcasting, like Howard Stern was kind of like the first medium in a way, and then he moved into his deal with Sirius, and then you have guys like Rogan and other people that have been doing it for a really long time. And I remember watching some episodes of Rogan, just kind of going back to like the first episode, and it was him and his buddy Brian Redband just goofing off, and like they had like these weird effects with like snow and lights, and like they were just talking stuff and like smoking weed, like they were just two dudes having a conversation.
Right. You got it.
And that was great. And then look what it's turned into now. And so what was your journey like? So you did podcasting pretty much at the very beginning of, for most people to even remember podcasts. Because honestly, I don't even remember even hearing about podcasts until maybe like 6, 7, 8 years ago. Like it wasn't.
We found out by accident, Jesse. It was just like there's this thing called podcasting, and so to give you a little background, my buddy who I referred to, his name's Dave Mendonca. He was a reporter, a sports reporter at a television sports network here in Toronto. No longer exists, but it's called The Score. So The Score was a local product. It didn't, it competed with, it certainly was in competition with some of the big names in terms of other stations, and it was just a really, really sort of laid back, but they delivered, right? And people connected. It was real. And I was there as an intern. And at the end of my intern period, it was really funny. I thought that once I got on board as an intern, that was my pathway to be on television. I'm going to get on TV. They're going to love me, and that's it. Well, it didn't happen. They said, "Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. See you later." And I walked away going, "Huh? Like, you don't want me on TV? Like, right. I'm great." And it didn't happen that way. And I sort of moved on through life and on to the next thing. I think that's another thing about me, where I don't really stay down for a whole lot of time. I think we're all going to have, is expression I used to say, I don't have bad days, I have bad moments, right? Yeah. So something happens, I go through and move on to the next one. So I move on to the next one. And then my buddy Dave sort of reached out to me one day, like a year later, and we started talking about how cool it would be to have a platform to talk about basketball, because that's how we connected. And we said, "Hey, there's this thing called podcasting. I never heard of it before, but let's try it." And it sort of took off from there. And it sort of, like I said, it was a springboard. So I'll tie it into my work now with NBL Canada.
Yeah.
So I started with this, and I started this NBA focused podcast in 2011. NBA was on a lockout, and and the medium, because of social media. Again, we didn't have social media to the degree that it is today. I think we had Twitter and Facebook really were the main ones.
Yep. Maybe MySpace too.
Yes. MySpace is a good one.
Was still, Tom was everyone's friend. As soon as you signed up for MySpace, Tom had the most friends.
Yeah, that's right. Still, I think that's what I was using my Hotmail account, actually. Mm-hmm. So 2011 lockout happened. There's no NBA content. Now, if this happened today with the accessibility of players and information and news, if the NBA went on lockout now, you would still be able to have tons and tons and tons of great content. Well, back in 2011, that wasn't exactly the case. And so we were really concerned about, hey, if there's no basketball, what are we going to talk about? Like, what are we going to do? Like, we tried to get creative and tried a few things. And in around that exact same time, NBL Canada started. It was their inaugural season, 2011. And we were like, well, hey, if there's no NBA content, let's start creating NBL Canada content. Nice. And that was my first exposure to the league. I jumped on board, loved what they were doing. And as time had gone on, I started to become deeper and deeper involved with them from an operations standpoint. I started learning the business of the league. I made key contacts in terms of players and owners and the board of directors, and started to establish relationship, gain their trust, started to become a reliable member of what they were trying to do. And then in 2017, I was appointed the deputy commissioner of the league. And again, so let's pause here for a second and go back. Well, how did that happen? Well, right. I started a podcast, and I was audacious enough to start a podcast. And then I was audacious enough to switch that and go in another direction because there's no NBA content. And then through that, I now land, 4 or 5 years later, I'm part of league executive. And I did that for about 3 years, and the board came back to me and said, we'd like to elevate your role. And I was appointed this past April as the vice president of basketball operations.
Nice.
So, again, but where did it all start? Right. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say, you got to be bold enough to take that first step, because it always is the first step. I can tell you neither myself or Dave knew anything about podcasting. We had no idea how to do it. We didn't, there was no courses you could take. The research that you could come up with was minimal, but we tried it anyways. And as a result of that, trying something, that's where the greatness, and then the covers unlocked all kinds of greatness. And so that's really, what I encourage and what I endorse. And I remind people over and over again, the greatness lies right within you. You've just got to tap into it.
No question, man. And we had a great conversation, like an introduction to each other. And we hit it off, man. And we talked about all things from like rap to comic books to basketball. And I asked you then, I'm going to ask you now in terms of basketball before we get into the inception of the league and how you were involved in that. But top 5 basketball players of all time, and then number 1 basketball player of all time. Like give me your starting 5, and then give me the number 1 basketball player of all time in your mind.
So if I was starting a basketball team, I want my top 5. I'm a Kobe guy. I mean, Kobe is I don't know how he's not number 1 on your list. I don't know. Now we talking about positions. We're just naming players.
Like if you could have any 5 people on a team who can and they could be swing players, multiple positions, whatever.
Yeah. So obviously Kobe's on my list.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Michael Jordan on my list. Although he was continually killing my New York Knicks,
yeah.
I was always a Knicks fan. It just killed me over. And it was like when that fourth quarter came, you're like, damn,
Jordan's on the floor.
It's like we got a 15-point lead and it's not big enough. Damn.
No.
Like, maybe next year. Like that was so although MJ continually killed my Knicks over and over again, I was a big Patrick Ewing fan. I'm gonna put him on it. I was a really, really, really big fan of Shaquille O'Neal when he came out in terms of his dominance, especially in his early years. And then when he shifted from Orlando to LA, he was just a phenomenal player. So big fan of Shaq O'Neal. So we got Jordan, we got Shaq. Man,
you got Kobe, Jordan, Shaq.
Kobe, I'm putting LeBron on there. I'm a LeBron fan as well. He's one of those generational players that you're not going to see twice in a lifetime. It's just not going to happen. And look at the longevity of his career and what he's done and what he continues.
I don't know if you've heard, he spends about $1 million a year on his body. In terms of training, nutrition, trainers and protocols,
cryogenic chambers and ice treatments,
sauna and all the stuff that you can do to what's called biohacking to make yourself healthier longer. I mean, that's part of what, if you're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars, it's just like a drip in the bucket, but it's doing so much. I mean, he's still, what is he in his mid to late 30s, and he's still at the top of his
36, and what's the piece about LeBron that I don't think he gets enough credit for, he's an extremely intelligent player. He's just so smart. He can adapt to the game. Say what you want about all the other stuff that crybaby, blah blah blah, whatever. All that kind of stuff. I still respect his game.
Give me one more. Who do you got? Number 5.
So you know what? This is a homer pick. I'm going with this homer pick. I'm a Toronto Raptor guy. We just lost Kyle Lowry. He's gonna go down as the greatest Toronto Raptor of all time for what he did for the franchise on and off the court. Say what you want. If you're out there, you hate me because I put Kyle Lowry on my list, but I'm a Toronto guy. I'm supporting my team. He helped bring us a championship. So there you go. Kyle Lowry's number 5 for me.
I would actually do the same thing. I would have the same 4 that you have. No shit. Jordan's my favorite player of all time. And then I would go Larry Bird because I'm a Boston guy.
There you go. That's it.
Right?
There's nothing wrong with
that. It
was
either Larry Bird or Magic Johnson. It was right there.
Yeah. And I left Magic off the list. I had to.
Hell yeah. So you got Kyle Lowry, I get Bird. That would be sick. That would be like, I mean, they'd win almost all the games. Okay, so number 1 player in your mind, greatest player of all time.
It's a toss-up. I went on for hours about LeBron or seemed like hours about how great he is. But I got to give it to Jordan. I mean,
that's when you know, right? That's like it's like if you hate Tom Brady,
yeah,
which I don't. But if you hate Tom Brady, because I'm a Boston guy, I love it. Now I root for the Tampa Bay Patriots, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to respect him now, because he not only did he have a great system, a great coach, he got 6 rings in New England, but then he went to Tampa Bay and brought it home his first year. At this point, it's undisputed.
That's right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you, as much as you hate the guy, and I remember, and I gave you all my reasons why I didn't like him.
Yeah.
He beat the Knicks over and over and over. The only time the Knicks got past the Bulls was when he was retired playing baseball.
Yeah.
That's the only time. And they went to the finals, and I was happy. Although there was still a piece of me, I was like, it would have been better if Jordan was there, but I'll take it anyways, right?
Yeah, taking how you get it. I used to watch the Knicks too, and I don't know if he's from there, but there's a tie with Patrick Ewing to Cambridge, Massachusetts. I think he's either from there or his family's from there, but he has. I remember people telling me about ties to Cambridge, so there's like a little Boston connection there.
I know he's Jamaican background. I knew he was born, and so where he ended up after he left Jamaica, who knows?
They might have grew up in Cambridge or something after that. But yeah, man, watching those like series back in the day, they were just, for me. And again, it could be nostalgia. It could be just I've kind of gotten away from NBA. I used to be all about it. Like the two things I wanted to be when I grew up was a doctor or NBA basketball player. So like I was really into it for a long time, and then I just kind of
which dream died first?
Basketball, followed by being a doctor. But I have become somewhat of a medicine man, so I am something. I'm into healing people, so I'm kind of, and I still like sports, so I figured out a way to do both. You know.
Yeah, and you know what? So I want to. That is a great point, because I similar as well. Sort of just had this kind of dream of what I wanted to be, and certainly being a basketball player was on the list. Right, that's what you did as a kid. And when I got to that point where I knew that wasn't going to be my reality, I still found ways to be a part of the game. Yes. And now I'm at the point where I'm, it's as an adult, professionally, it's very much a part of my life. And so, although it may not have been part of the initial dream, like basketball has blessed me. Yeah. It really, really has. And so I feel, again, on top of being blessed and fortunate, I totally am.
I joke around. I used to have the competitive nature of Michael Jordan without the athleticism. I've gotten into so many fights. I've gotten punched in the mouth so many times because I talk so much shit like Jordan, and like would be up someone's ass all game. They just got fed up and like would want to fight. But I was decent for like a local person, but like I wasn't playing in the pros. Like
I was a playground legend. So I grew up in a part of Toronto where a lot of Europeans, high European. Oh yeah. So I had the edge. I had the edge because they were all playing soccer. Yep. And I'd say, hey, come out of the court. And I would just kill them. I'd destroy these guys. Yep. But the funny thing is, so where we played, there was an outdoor court and there was a community center inside an indoor court. Yep. Well, all the good players were at the indoor court. And let's just say I never made it inside. But I dominated the playground. I was
you fit in where you could, man. You got it when you fit in.
That's exactly it.
So
exactly.
Were you a part of this? Is it NBL, like National Basketball League of Canada? Is that what it's called?
Yep. NBLC,
were you at the inception? Were you at the very beginning? Were you part of building this?
Yeah. So I wasn't part of the actual building of it. In fact, a friend of mine who first alerted to me, he said, hey, there's this basketball league. You should check it out. And so when I got there, they had somewhat of a foundation already set up. Yeah. And so the other thing that I was able to do was I was able to spot, okay, where can I fit in? What's missing? Beautiful. What's the gap? Yep. And I was able to essentially take all the stuff I was doing on this podcast, focused on NBA, and shift it over to this new arena. And right away it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because they didn't know what they didn't have because they didn't see it. Like they just didn't know. I was the one that had to bring that. And you know what? I think that's a really good lesson for people to understand when they're trying to figure out their place in the world. Yep. I oftentimes, I'm again, on top of being blessed, I have the opportunity to speak to a lot of students who are in sports management programs or wanting to get in the business of sports. And one thing that I oftentimes say is, figure out who you are first, and then figure out where that sense of, once you identified that sense of self, figure out who needs that or where you can fit in, how you can fit in. Yes. And I think and that's really the starting point for a lot of people. And so that's essentially what I had done. I take no credit for where it started, but from the, from the ground up, I was very much a part of building that next level and that next level and that next level. And here we are 10 years later.
Beautiful, brother. So where is it now in terms of how many players, how many teams, like in terms of the reach of region? Like, are you all over parts of Canada? Like, tell me about all that.
So we're primarily, for those familiar with the country geographically, in Ontario and Eastern Canada and the Maritimes, Newfoundland, Halifax,
Yeah.
Moncton. There are 8 teams in the league right now. We don't have a presence in the West, but that's a goal, right? So there's always more room and opportunities to grow, and so that's where we are. We operate typically from about December to about April, May, kind of a thing. All our players are on kind of 1-year contracts, and that way at the end of our season they go off elsewhere and find jobs wherever else they can, whether it's overseas or in Europe. We've had players, actually quite a few players who've been in the NBA G League, as an example, have played in our league as well. So the level of competition is very on par with what you'd see in the G League. We've actually set up throughout the years a number of sort of exhibition games with the Raptors 905, which is a local G League team here in our area.
Nice.
And we actually beat them once, which is our, we can proudly brag about that, right?
Yeah, you got a banner for it.
That's it, man. Celebrate everything is one of my other models, right?
Celebrate everyone. Everything. So are we running with about 12 players per team, give or take 8 to 12 players?
That's right. That's exactly it. That's exactly. It's very fluid in terms of the players that come and go. Listen, as long as you have a league like the NBA as an example, there's always something to shoot for if you're a player.
For sure.
So look, if you want to stay with us and play with us your entire career, that's great. We'd love to have you. But at the same time, we take great pride knowing that, hey, player A started here and now he's over there and now he's gone on, or you can still make have a very healthy career not playing in the NBA, going overseas, and a number of players who making good money.
So episodes back, the name Josh Childress. Josh Childress was one of the first players to really make that famous. Outside of Starbury, Marbury went to China, became an icon over there. But what's Childress did this first. One of the people to do it first in terms of someone who was like really in their prime or close to their prime, leaving the NBA and then going overseas and having this beautiful career overseas that spanned like 17 years. And Childress he's got a great story, man. But he was very impactful, I think, in causing that new paradigm shift where people are like, it's not just about the NBA, like what you just said. You get to go travel the world, you get good money, like you have great experience, you have great competition, you can win championships. It's beautiful.
Listen, it's a whole new world, and I think really that speaks to the growth and the strength of the game itself, right? Basketball, it's an international game. It legitimately and truly is. And so, and it translates regardless what country that you're in. You get on a court, whether you speak the language or not, everyone understands what their job is to, and whether it's to stop you or score on you, that's what we're going to do. So, no, I think it speaks to what's happening with the game. And I'm really, really excited about that, because that certainly, provides opportunities for our league to continue to grow.
I know. You think it goes back to, and this is like your arch nemesis for a while, New York fan that you are, but think about what the brand of Jordan has done for basketball in terms of like it's the most visible brand in the world, and everybody knows in the world. I feel like, at least in my perception, and we may have talked about this, but like everybody kind of has heard of the Jordan brand, and like at least around the world, it seems to be the most renowned brand in the world, which is and he's still selling millions of sneakers. Like it's crazy.
That and the Superman emblem. Everyone knows him.
Right? I saw a guy today. I had a podcast this morning, ran to the store real quick, came right back, and on the way to the store, I saw a guy walking out with a Superman shirt on. This could be a good segue for this. He's got a Superman shirt on. I was like, "Did you save anybody today?" And he started laughing, and he was like, "Not yet." Like it was just, and it was just funny. But yeah, man, it's the power of basketball. I mean, in my life growing up, it kept me off the streets. Like I grew up in Boston. I grew up in the city of Boston, where there's like a lot of crime and mafia and all this crazy shit that's out there. And I had my 2-year excursion with like being, a crazy son of a bitch. But outside of that, man, it kept me out of trouble. It kept me probably alive, to be honest.
wow, like where would I be? Where would I be if it wasn't for the game of basketball? And so, yeah, it's great. It really, truly is. And so for me, again, to be a part of that, and to see some of these players and how they change their lives, and a lot of our teams are in smaller communities, and to watch the way they look, we're not just there to play basketball, we're there to be part of the actual communities themselves. And so it's just a real thrill, and it provides me an opportunity to further try to expand my personal brand too.
And that's beautiful, brother. And it's serving something that was a dream of yours growing up,
Sure.
and something that you were so passionate about for your whole life. And
in a different way,
just for some context, in terms of these contracts, these I'm assuming they're getting paid. Like they get
absolutely.
I don't know how it works. So it's I mean, imagine when you can get paid for something that you love. I mean, that's part of a great life.
That's it. No, it totally is. And that's why, again, I sometimes I pinch myself, because I'm like, wow, I get to do some really cool stuff. And, it's really easy to look back on our lives and go, well, this happened. But, I didn't grow up with a father. My parents split when I was 6 months old.
Wow.
I met him when my eldest daughter, she's now 26, she was 6 months old. It's the very first time I met my father. Then 3 years later, he passed away because he was ill. Right. I could carry this with me and be like, wow, I didn't have this, and focus all the things I didn't have. Well, I had a really awesome mom who loved and cared, and would kick my ass if she needed to. And didn't let up on me. And I had a great family, had a great support network. All those things provided the foundation for me to kind of figure out myself as I go, where I wanted to fit where I fit in the world. So it's got nothing to do with where you start. It's where you're at and where you finish. And that's really the only thing you should be really looking at. Like, it's like running a race. Like, okay, the first 50 yards you screwed up or whatever, the race isn't done, man. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. Another parallel we share is I had a dad that was he was on heroin for a majority of my life, and after about 30 years of his drug journey, he cleaned up, and he was, for about 10 or 11 years, was somewhat of a decent dad and a good grandfather to my two sons. And my mom was the disciplinarian. She had to be, and she was ex-army, served active duty Vietnam War, so she was a badass. So whenever I got punishment, it was like, go pick a belt, and I was like, oh, okay. Those things that you can find, the beauty is, like, I'm thankful that I had a mom like that, because if I had a mom that was a junkie like my dad, who knows where I would have been, right?
Crazy part too is the other thing about my father is that the only thing, so I had no pictures of him, I had no image of him, I had nothing at all. The only thing that I had is I carried his first name. His name is Audley, and I carried my father's name. That's all I had. And my childhood wasn't, I wasn't deprived. I had love. I had all the things that you need to grow and develop. And I just had this guy's name. And so, I remember the very first time. So what happened? I'll tell you a quick story on this. So Red Cross has this service where they find lost family members. Yes. And so he used that to search for his son. And I remember vividly getting a call. I wasn't living with my mom anymore. And I'd gotten a call, and she goes, I got a message on my voicemail, and it says, one of your parents are looking for you. And I'm going, what do you want, Mom? I'm right here. She goes, no, it's not me. And I called, and I said, hey, this is Audley. And before I even got it, he knew who I was right away. Because, you're my son. And I was like, wow. And and at the time he knew he was sick, and I think that what motivated him to come and find his son. And we developed a relationship, and it didn't start great, but we had a good relationship. And then certainly after that, 3 years later, he was gone. And do I look at my whole life I didn't have? No, I look at what I had.
Yes.
I look at what the opportunity. Like, my daughter got to meet her grandfather. I didn't meet my grandfather. Like, I don't know. I knew my grandmother on my mom's side, but that was it. My daughter got to meet her grandfather. So it's got nothing to do with, where you started. It all is about what you choose. And again, and it's a choice too, Jesse, right? It's very much a choice. We can choose to focus on what we don't have, or choose to celebrate the things that we do.
No question, brother. No question. And another thing that we kind of like hit our bromance off on was comic books and rap music. And so I could tell you my journey with comic books was as a collector, as a kid, and it was just escapism. It was like,
Yeah.
Like watching Superman, you can fly, you could, pick up buildings, you could save people, all that stuff.
You weren't a Superman fan, though, were you?
It was the very first thing, why is because it was big during pop culture that time. So I remember being a kid that was like maybe 6 years old wearing a Superman costume for Halloween.
Yeah. Okay.
But once I had I guess an understanding of comics, I went way deep into Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I went into Hulk. I went into Punisher, Wolverine. And then I started going from there a whole bunch of different places. But those were my first few characters. But I bring that up because comics had an interesting play in my life outside of being like, I collected action figures. And this is funny because when we started talking about it on our intro call, I took you around my house and showed you like my comics and my action figures. You did the same thing for me. And it was, again, it was escapism. I'm really decent at drawing because I used to draw all the time. And so I would look at a picture of Spider-Man and draw it. And it would just be like, it was a hobby. It was something that was a passion. And also I learned how to make money with it because I would buy and sell and trade comic books and baseball cards as a kid. So like way before Gary Vee was ever in like social consciousness of like hustle. Like what he used to do as a kid with like baseball cards. Like I did this because one of my good buddies growing up, his name is Paul. His grandfather had a local business called the Rookie Stop or the Rookie Store, or whatever it was called, the Rookie something. And he was running a business, and we were learning how to like run a business by watching him. And so like if we ever wanted a new comic, we would just trade it or sell it. Like we didn't even like, it was like this little like commerce center.
Yeah.
And so I bring that up because I wanted to find out about your journey with comics, and I know you're passionate about them, or at least one point they were really big for you. How did you get into comics?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, like everyone else, it was just there. It was easy to kind of, it's so funny when I think of when I was a kid, how big Saturday mornings were.
Yes,
like
Saturday morning cartoons.
That was a religion. I remember they used to have preview shows on Friday night of all the cartoons they'd have on Saturday, and you shut down Saturday. And that was the thing. Saturday morning cartoons was a religion, literally. Yes. And so like every other kid, you just got caught up into it. And superheroes was just, the fantasy, all the great things that come along with it. You get really excited. And so, I was really into it as well. Escapism is a good piece, a good point. And I know for me, it was a little bit of that as well in terms of just getting lost in this whole universe.
Yeah.
And you just sort of goes from there. So you start with the cartoons, the toys. I think comic books is a natural progression. But what I loved about comics is that it really took you in deeper. I remember listening to Stan Lee, who obviously, the great late Stan Lee from Marvel Comics, talk about the process that he went through in developing these characters and how he made them so conflicted and so real. Yes. Peter Parker was a nerd that was always trying to fit in. The Hulk, Bruce Banner was searching for some form of peace inside because he lived a monster inside of him. And you had all these individuals that were broken and flawed in whatever way they were, but they still managed to come out of their shell and do these great things. And so those types of stories, you just naturally connect to. The other cool thing I heard Stanley talk about is that all of his characters, their first and last name started with the same initial, right? So Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, right? Yeah. This is great. J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, I know, right? The triple. So yeah, man, for me, Saturday morning cartoons, and I actually got showing my sons this recently because like through like Disney Plus and some of these other things that have all the old stories. But for me, it was the Amazing Spider-Man. The Spider-Man was amazing. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was it was the Batman animated series, which was really good. And then X-Men, man. X-Men was incredible.
That was you know what, you can watch that now and still be like, wow,
it's so good.
It's
crazy good storytelling. That's
right.
It's incredible. And that's right. My oldest son, who just turned 7, he went through like multiple seasons of each one of these things when I showed him to him, and it's like even now, like a big part of my life growing up was Nintendo and Mario Brothers. Like Super Mario Brothers 3 is my favorite game of all time. And so I bought this little USB that has like 800 games on it, for $40, and like these wireless controllers. And like a couple weekends ago, I'm sitting there playing Super Mario Brothers 3 with my son, who's completely losing his shit because he's used to games where like it's easier. Where back in the day, if you look at those, you had one life. Like as soon as you die, you start over from the beginning. That's it. You had to be good. You had to finish the level. And he doesn't understand that concept because he's playing on his Nintendo Switch with Mario. Like Mario like never dies, and it's like
that's right. Lives forever.
A little Mario right here.
There you go. There you go.
But these things were like they created and cultivated a big part of my life story. And you know what's really funny too about kids these days?
What's that?
And I'm gonna sound like an old man saying this, but like I remember, even though as much as my friends and I would play this for hours on the weekend, we were outside just as much, if not
That's
more.
right.
So we were playing sports. We were running around the neighborhood. We were chasing girls. We were having fun.
Absolutely. Learning how to develop relationships.
When it was raining out, we'd be playing that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good blend to try to teach kids today to kind of like, you know, if you're going to be into video games, great, because that's part of technology and what's going on in the world. But at the same time, get out and get some fresh air and like do something fun.
That's right. No, it totally is bang on. I mean, you know, video games, it served a place, but it wasn't the place, right? Yeah. You still had the ability to develop relationships and have friends and go and do neat stuff.
Yeah.
And, take risks and take chances. So I'll tell you a funny thing. Another thing. So when I was a kid, oops, my mic dropped here. Oops.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. See, it happens. So when I was a kid, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. So when I was a kid, the one thing that I didn't do as a kid is learn to ride a bike.
Wow. Okay.
The only thing I just didn't. And what happened is, as time went on, it became easier and easier just not to ride. Yeah. So I just didn't learn. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I got on my bike for the very first time. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to learn how to ride a bike, because I'm like, why can't I? Why shouldn't I? Right. And I get on this thing. And, you know, it opened up this whole new world for me. Yeah. So as you're talking about stuff we did as kids, what it actually did, like, so I got on this bike, I learned how to ride a bike, and I went back to my old area that I grew up in. Yeah. And now as an adult, I'm riding to these streets that I used to run out as a kid. And I just got lost in that whole, and it brought it all back to me, what my childhood was all about. And so I hear you loud and clear. Dude, kids gotta get out there, man.
We would ride dozens of miles, because living in Boston, all the towns are close to each other. So like you could go from like East Boston or Eastie, where I grew up, you can go 3 miles to Winthrop, a couple miles to Revere, like all these different places, like just along the seaboard, and just go from like place to place to place to place. And it was like our car for the longest time. Everyone we went was on a bike. And it's interesting, because now that I'm thinking about it, talk about getting nostalgic, like I had some friends that were like me that liked a lot of things but there was some people that only liked video games. There was only some people that liked sports. There were only some people that liked to get out, ride their bikes. And so like, I realize now, looking back on it, the reason why I'm able to connect with a bunch of different people is because I had all these pockets of friends that did different things. Yeah. And then rollerblades came along, and we were rollerblading and like doing all sorts of tricks. And like, we were tricking out our rollerblades so they could go faster, and like have like you could grind on the, like jump on the thing and like slide on it, and like all this, dude. Holy shit, growing up was awesme.
It was. I'm telling you.
It was awesome.
It was a wild trip that I had never, and I said I grew up, I was a happy kid. I had all I didn't go hungry. I didn't, wasn't lonely. I had friends like yourself. So yeah, I had an awesome childhood.
Oh yeah, dude. I had a rough childhood, but at the same time, I had so many, I didn't think I did. But then I realized through therapy years later that I went through a lot of shit. But at the end of the day, I do remember a lot of fun things and like a lot of great things about one of them was rap. And you got a Tribe Called Quest behind you, man. One of the greatest. And so talk about that journey for you, because I know music is big for you, and like you had a podcast around it. Didn't you?
So I had a in my podcast journey. So I think over the course of my lifetime, I had 6 or 7 different podcasts. Wow. And one of them was called Down with the Kings. And it was dedicated to, I'm not going to use the term old school hip hop. I'm going to use classic hip hop. Right? There you go. And a buddy of mine had a hip hop radio station, online internet station. And he said, "Hey, I'm looking for shows. What do you think?" And I was part of the sort of the helping him plan it, right? And the whole time I was doing that, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I wonder if I should do this. This is really, really cool. But never really took action on that. And then when my buddy said to me, "I want to do this. What do you think? You want to do something?" And hey, that audacious self said, absolutely. Hell yeah. And I jumped into this. I did this show, and it was just dedicated to music in my era, like, the 80s and 90s hip hop. Yep. And hip hop meant a lot to me as a kid growing up, because
some of the best in my mind. And again, I'm partial because that's when I grew up, but to me, that's the best era, 80s, 90s.
Absolutely.
No question. Early 2000s, maybe, but 80s, 90s for sure.
What you saw you saw within the hip hop genre is split off into whether you had, conscious hip hop or party hip hop or street gangster or whatever. Yeah. Like you had all those different genres within, the industry. In fact, I can remember going to a concert and you'll have like NWA and Kid and Play and the Fresh Prince all on one card. Like, right. Wow. Like,
how incredible is that?
No, that's exactly it. Right. So hip hop always, it played, I think it played I can't downplay the significance of what it had in my life. When I look at, I think of guys like, Big Daddy Kane and KRS One and EPMD, these groups, they felt like, you know what they felt like? Chuck D, Public Enemy. These guys felt like uncles. You ever get that uncle that will call you aside and, I'm gonna tell you what life is all about. Your parents aren't gonna tell you, but I got you. That's what it felt like to me. And that's why I looked up to some of these guys, even though some of them were in my own age group. They're only a couple years older than me, but I looked up to them in that fashion. And I think that they were a very, very important part of my upbringing. They helped develop me as an individual. They certainly opened up my whole world and in terms of knowledge and understanding. And you got to hear about sort of, whether it be racial injustices or social injustices, it really started to understand and explore that aspect of the world that I probably wouldn't have known much about. So they were always important to me. So to have now the opportunity to have a hip hop show, and I'm having these artists, these guys who I looked up to as guests, and the biggest thrill for me is when I had Daryl Mack from Run DMC. I sat down and talked to the guy that called himself the King of Rock. Like, DMC, Run DMC as a group, we all know what they did with their Adidas and their style. They really opened up the genre mainstream in a really big, big way. And I remember I was geeked out. I mean, I was just, you can imagine, Jesse, I was geek, like, wow, DMC. And I remember asking him, why he called himself the King of Rock. They had this song called the King of Rock. There is none higher. Sucker MCs will call me sire. I say I can go on and on, but that was their song. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, help me understand why would you're a hip hop guy? You're wearing my Adidas. Why are you talking about rock? And he said to me, you have to understand at that time, rock and roll was considered king. So if you wanted to aspire to any level of greatness, you had to challenge the top. So we were challenging the top in a bold, audacious way. And that's why we called ourselves the King of Rock. And I mean, stuff like that. You just get, honestly, I love the story. I'm getting goosebumps thinking I think about that because it's like, are you kidding me, man? Are you kidding me? Like, wow.
Walk This Way, right? Yeah. Think about how they actually, they tied in to rock. Like they took one of the biggest bands of all time and rock, especially at that time, 80s.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they did the crossover. Like you see many years later with different, Jay-Z was big with this with Linkin Park and like all that different stuff.
That's right. Well, they did it first.
Yeah. Like that's one of the first ones I can remember. And it was powerful. They come breaking through the wall and they're like looking at each other and it's like, all right, let's do it together. And all of a sudden it was just this beautiful convergence of styles, man.
That's right.
Okay. So I'm gonna do this to you. So top 5 dead or alive. I'll go first. Man. In no specific order, I'll go first. Biggie, Nas, Jay-Z. I like Big L. I do like Big L. And Tupac. But those are more my generation. Like for me, those are the guys that like I grew up with. No,
I get it. Yeah. Oh man.
So give me top 5 dead or alive. Do it.
So Tupac, I'm put on that list. I'm put Cool G Rap on that list.
Okay.
I'm put Biggie on that list. This is so hard, man.
Two more.
Jay-Z on that list.
Okay.
Oh man. I was a big fan of Tretch from Naughty by Nature.
Oh yeah.
I thought that guy's flow was so ridiculous.
We all have favorites. Like I like Prodigy.
Yeah, Prodigy,
insane.
Mobb Deep. It just So Nas is on that list. I'm struggling. I struggle with this, man.
I know. It's tough. An easy question because you like so many and so many meant so many different things and chapters in your life, Well, it was a couple things, right? So absolutely the chapters in your life, but what also happens, right, is depending on where you are in your life and what you hear in that exact moment, right? It impacts you. It stays with you. Right. And so I talk about Run DMC and, the King of Rock. What? Yeah, I want to be the king too. Like that's what it does for you. So that's the other part what makes it so challenging and tough. But yeah, I'll tell you,
those are I reluctantly give you my 5 there.
I love it. It's okay. And it's fluid. It can always change depending on your season of life. Right.
Yeah.
during those 2 years when I thought I was a tough guy in Boston, 50 Cent was really big for me. So it's funny how they have like this story and this narrative that kind of plays through life through music. Music is so beautiful. And, I got into different stuff. And so, what's really interesting? I don't know if you've heard about this guy. Have you heard of Harry Mack?
No, it doesn't.
Harry Mack's this white dude that's like, he, in my mind, and from what I've heard, in terms of off the top, not pre-scripted, and we didn't even talk about Eminem and some other people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So many amazing people, right? But Harry Mack, and I'll send you his Instagram handle.
Sure. Yeah.
What he does now, so he used to walk around like in LA and in California, and he'd walk up to people like kind of like guerrilla marketing mode. He'd walk up to someone, he'd be like, "Hey, give me 3 words, any 3 words you want to give me." And all of a sudden he'd rhyme this whole 3-4 minute rap, but he would also call it like Audley's, you got your own back with the poster in the back. Like he would actually talk about what's going on in the moment outside of the 3 things. And to me, man, he'll blow your mind. I'm going to send you his link, and he puts up new stuff like almost every day. He's on this thing called Omegle, where like people are like across the world, and like he's like, "Hey, give me 3 words." And to me, man, from what I've seen, I think he's the best freestyler of all time. It's hard to say that. I know it is. I know it's crazy.
I've seen artists like that perform as well too, and guys are getting ciphers and just go bananas. And you know what, that was, I think everyone when I was a kid, everyone used to rap back then, right? Everyone was a rapper. Everyone was trying. I'm the odd man, and whatever it was I used to say back then, right? But that fell off like my basketball career, as you know. But nonetheless, that was the fun part of the music, right? That's what made the music fun. And I don't want to sound like a old man when I say this, but when I compare it to music now, I'm just like, okay.
It's just different. It is. And I thought about this too, man. Like that, I've noticed I used to be so deep into basketball and so in love. Like I had my basketball coach tell me one time, he's like, "You got to love Jones for basketball." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's like I live and breathe." I used to play in the snow. Like I had a little driveway with an adjustable 7 to 10 foot basketball hoop. Yep. We'd have dunk contests. We'd play in the snow. Like it was a thing. I'd play hours a day, every day. And then over the last maybe like I'd say 5-ish, 7 years, I've kind of gotten away from it now. Where I look back and I was talking to one of my buddies, it's still relevant to me. I still talk about it. But I talked to one of my good buddies, and I'm like, "Man, the league has just changed. Like I don't recognize anyone."
It's true. It's so
I don't, because I don't keep up with it.
I got to go to my 15-year-old son and go, "Who's that? Like,
right.
Where
like,
did he come from?"
Amazing players, and like I know guys like Melo and LeBron,
and
Kyrie Irving, and like some of the elder statesmen, because that's when I was watching it. But then all of a sudden it's like, and then bigger names like Giannis and like all these, Lowry and everybody who's playing now. But man, I like for the majority, like I used to be able to name pretty much like everybody in the league. Oh,
absolutely.
Like all the starters.
Absolutely.
On every team.
I would tell you bench players.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now I'm lucky, like outside of maybe the top 2 or 3 per team, and not even like I kind of gotten away from it. So
no, I feel you on that, and so it's very similar to me as well. I'm actually proud of the disconnect I have with the sport today, and I do want to get better at that, because again, it's important. But life is also in the way too, so it's not like I'm constantly ditching it. It's just kind of how it's evolved. But I kind of feel the same with hip hop music as well too, where it's just like, who's that guy? And where'd this guy come from? And, what song did he sing? I'm going to say this. I put on Kanye's brand new album. Everyone's hyped with this Kanye album. And I'm listening. I'm like, oh, that's okay. And I put on his first one, and I'm excited again.
So funny, man. I feel the same way, because we didn't even name him, but he's another lyrical genius. And he's just a genius in general. Like his brain. That's it. I love it. He was on Joe Rogan a while back, and Joe Rogan did an amazing job at like really giving him space and time to just be who he was.
Nice.
And instead of,
and a guy like that needs that.
Yeah,
he needs that space.
He's got such a beautiful mind, and the way that his mind thinks. And I think that's honestly what it is, man. Our society is so quick to like throw people on pain meds or like do something like that, or like psychotic stuff, like mental health stuff. But his mind just works differently, man. And that's we need that. Guys like Kanye, guys like Elon Musk, like guys that just think differently.
That's right. That's right.
They've changed the world.
Absolutely.
He's thinking about like self-sustaining like communities and like people that can take care of themselves, like out of the government's control. Like he's a great thinker. And he was talking about how when they put him on these medicines because he was like doing crazy things, it dulled him down.
Yeah.
He got like really dull, and like his mind didn't work anymore. And he's like, it was the worst time of my life.
Yeah.
So you can have someone who's a savant or eccentric, and let them stay in that lane. Like nobody needs to be like anybody else. And I really love that. If you listen to that conversation with Joe Rogan, he really was able to pull that out of Kanye. And Kanye doesn't seem like a crazy person. He just seems like a dude whose brain that works different.
Again, you need the space, and I think that's a great point that you raised. We the term weird, we call people weird or different, and I'm
a weirdo.
That's not negative. It's not a bad thing.
I'm totally
I don't know why we think things like being weird is bad, because it's not. You're different, unique, and quite frankly, we, as you said, we need all that in the mix, right? Perspectives, viewpoints, experiences, what you've gone through, what you've seen, and what I've seen are totally different. But that doesn't mean we can't come together. Much like Aerosmith and Run DMC came together and created a great song.
You would like, if you never spoke to me and I never spoke to you, although I have a different worldview than most, like I like, you could be like, they have nothing in common. Just be like, I'm all tatted up, like I'm a white dude, a black dude, like you live in Toronto, I live in the United States, like all this shit.
Right.
But like when we started talking, we had so much in common.
Like, it was our life experience
all over the place. Like
that's right.
Not just sports, not just business, but like comics and all this music.
That's right.
So much.
That's right.
Anyway, so save all that to say, brother, what's going on in your world today? What's the podcast? Talk more about, the Audacious Living and what you're doing there, and like what types of people and types of conversations you're having.
The conversations, like I said before, to be able to have people that want to make this world more audacious is really the best part about it. We just a couple weeks ago just did 50 episodes, which for me was a big deal.
Congrats.
We started last December, and we've just been pumping out content and having just a lot of great guests. Just a wide variety. I had Tommy Davidson on, comedian from In Living Color.
I remember, dude, one of my favorite shows growing up.
Yeah,
and Tommy, Marshall Bill and Homie the Clown. Like that's enough. Come on, dude. Really?
Telling you, it was crazy. Really? So that was another pinch me moment. Like, wow, this is kind of cool. And I told him, I said, Tommy, as a kid, I loved watching it. You guys provided an outlet like I'd never had an experience before. So to hear him talk about his life, he was abandoned as a baby. His mother left him in a dumpster. A white family found him, adopted him, and he grew up in this white family and had identity issues, not recognizing, hey, I'm a black man living. So he had to learn all that. He went through the story of his life and just sort of his own challenges and stardom and all these sorts of things. And so it's those types of real conversations I have with individuals. Whether
what's he doing these days? Is he still performing? Is he doing comedy?
Yeah, he's doing stand-up. Yeah, he's doing stand-up. He's still quite active. He was talking about happy to get back out in the world again after the pandemic, right? So so he's
comedians. Yeah, comedians had it really
absolutely
rough. Like, I'm a big fan of the Comedy Store in LA, and all the comedians that have come through there. Prior and all, the greats have come through there. And it was a mecca, and the reason why I liked it, I had a chance to go there, and it's like some of the best comedians in the world today. This was a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. Some of the comedians that are the best in the world today, they all practice there, and they all
they go back.
They hang out there.
They go back.
So
absolutely.
On a Tuesday night, you can see headliners like Sebastian Maniscalco, like Joe Rogan, all these crazy names.
Yeah,
like on a Tuesday night, and they're just working on their
That's
their
right.
notes, man. It's incredible.
That's right. That really speaks to the whole. When you think you've made it, and the steps and the habits and the routines and all the things that you did to get you up there, they still maintain it. Like that doesn't change. And that's it. And we talk about greatness, and mindset is everything. You're posted over your shoulder there. It's exactly what that is, right? It's all about the things that you do, and you continue them to maintain your greatness and go beyond it.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah, brother. So what are you looking forward to for the rest of 2021? And just
I'm truly the podcast is growing, which I'm really, really phenomenal, excited about. But again, the basketball league is on its way again, going into its 10th season, which is big.
Awesome.
We had to. It's actually interesting. We had to stop because of COVID last March, like the rest of the world. And I went through a bit of a spiral because I'm going, you've taken away basketball from me. You've taken away that thing that's so important. Now what? And I had days where I couldn't get out of bed because I was just kind of miserable and not even realizing that I was in this form of depression. I was experiencing something and I didn't know what it was. And it was through just conversations with people going, I don't feel right. Something's off. I'm not sure what's wrong with me. And it was through those sort of conversations, I was able to pinpoint that I was suffering from loss and grief. Like this thing that was a part of me was taken. I didn't get it. We didn't get any advance notice. We didn't get any heads up, anything like that. It was the rug was pulled from out of us, and we're without the things that we loved. And it was after kind of going through that process where I landed on, yeah, okay, now that I know this, what do I do? How do I want to come out in the world? How do I want to serve? And that was really the foundation or the thought process what started me on the podcast.
Love it.
And from then, it's been fantastic. But yeah, I mean, as far as this upcoming year, our 10th season is a big deal for us. We are Canada's longest standing professional basketball league ever.
Wow.
And we're quite proud of that. And that is something that we're going to profile as much as possible. And just celebrate life, man.
Love it, brother. Celebrating life, doing it right, man. Living audaciously, mighty, and powerful. You are a total badass, brother. And I'm glad we connected, man.
Hey, Jesse, listen, man, it's awesome that you had me roll through. Like, this was a great conversation. You made me go deep, buddy. And that's awesome. It's stuff that I mean, my father, I haven't talked about that in a while. Not that I was suppressing it. I just didn't talk about it, but it's through those understandings of our past experiences and recognizing where they where they fit in our lives and how they shape us moving forward. It's so important to go through that process. So thank you for the convo. Doing an awesome job. Keep spreading your powerful love and message of powerful mindset, man. And we'll just go make this world audacious.
You got it, brother. Let's get it together. Thank you so much for being you. And I can't wait to see where our journey leads, man.
Sounds good, Jesse. Take care.